The last thing my sister said before disappearing through airport security was, "I'll be back in 30 minutes." She smiled, kissed each of her 6-year-old twins on the forehead, handed me 2 tiny backpacks, then disappeared into the crowd. At the time, nothing seemed unusual. My name is Natalie Brooks. I was 33 years old, an emergency room nurse, single, no children of my own. But I adored my niece Emma and nephew Ethan more than anyone could imagine. Whenever my shifts allowed, they spent weekends at my apartment. We baked cookies that usually came out slightly burned, built blanket forts in my living room, read bedtime stories until one of us fell asleep first. They often joked that I made better pancakes than their mother. Vanessa would simply laugh. "They're probably right." She laughed nervously. "I'm their mother. I always overpack." Then she hugged me tightly. Too tightly. "Thank you. You've always been the responsible one." Those words stayed with me. They weren't unusual. Vanessa had been saying them since we were teenagers. Whenever she forgot to pay bills, Natalie will fix it. Whenever she missed a school meeting, Natalie will handle it. Whenever she needed someone to babysit, Natalie will help. I never complained, because family helps family. Or at least, that's what I believed. The twins happily colored in their activity books while we waited near the departure gate. 30 minutes passed. Emma looked up. "Mommy's taking a long time. Security lines can be slow." She accepted my answer without question. An hour passed. I called Vanessa, straight to voicemail. I frowned. That's strange. Another 30 minutes. I called again. Nothing. Ethan looked toward the terminal windows. Did Mommy miss her plane? I'm sure she'll call. I hoped I sounded more confident than I felt. Then my phone buzzed. I smiled in relief. Finally, instead of a phone call, a text message appeared. "I'm already on the plane." My stomach tightened. Another message arrived immediately. "I'm flying to the Caribbean." Then another. "Don't try to stop me." My hands started shaking. The final message stole the air from my lungs. "You should be taking care of Emma and Ethan anyway. You're the responsible one. They'll be better off with you." For several seconds, I couldn't move. I simply stared at the screen. Emma gently tugged my sleeve. "Aunt Natalie, is Mommy coming?" I looked at the 2 children sitting beside me. They trusted me completely. They had no idea their entire world had just changed. I forced a smile. "She's delayed." Even as I spoke the words, I hated myself for lying. Airport announcements echoed through the terminal. Passengers hurried past. Life continued. Yet mine had stopped. I immediately called Vanessa again. Voicemail. Again. Locked. My number had already been blocked. I tried social media. Her accounts were gone. I called her parents. Mom answered cheerfully. "How's the airport?" I swallowed hard. "Did Vanessa tell you anything?" "No." "Why?" I explained everything. Silence. Then Dad quietly asked. "She actually left?" "Yes." Mom started crying. "No, not again." Those 2 words caught my attention. Again. Another silence followed. Dad sighed heavily. "We'll explain later." Before I could ask another question, airport security officers approached. One of them spoke gently. "Ma'am, we've received a report regarding 2 unattended minors." I showed them the messages. The older officer read each one carefully. His expression became serious. "I'm afraid this qualifies as child abandonment." Emma looked frightened. "Are we in trouble?" The officer immediately knelt beside her. "Absolutely not. You've done nothing wrong." She leaned against me. I wrapped both children in my arms. "I won't let anything happen to you." The officers escorted us to a private family assistance office. A social worker soon arrived carrying juice boxes and coloring books. She spoke kindly to the twins before asking me questions. "Do you have suitable housing?" "Yes." "Any criminal history?" "No." "Would you be willing to care for them temporarily?" I didn't even hesitate. "Of course." Hours later, after completing emergency paperwork, I drove home with 2 sleepy children in the backseat of my car. Neither spoke much. Emma finally whispered, "When Mommy comes home, can we still have movie night?" I felt tears forming. "Absolutely." She smiled and closed her eyes. That night, I tucked them into my guest room. After they fell asleep, I quietly opened the backpacks Vanessa had given me. At first, everything looked ordinary. Pajamas, favorite stuffed animals, toothbrushes, family photographs. Then I found a sealed envelope. Across the front, in Vanessa's handwriting, were 7 words that made my heart race. "Don't open unless I never come back." My hands trembled as I slowly opened it. Inside wasn't just a letter. There were passports, birth certificates, a bank envelope containing $50,000 in cash, and a confession that revealed my sister hadn't simply run away for a vacation. She had been fleeing someone dangerous for years, and now that person would soon come looking for the twins, and my hands shook so badly that I almost dropped the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter, several official documents, 2 passports, the twins' birth certificates, a cashier's check, and an envelope containing $50,000 in cash. I stared at the money in disbelief. Vanessa would never leave that kind of money behind without a reason. I unfolded the letter. The first line made my heart stop. "Natalie, if you're reading this, I know you hate me. You have every right to." Tears blurred the words. She continued. "I didn't leave because I stopped loving Emma and Ethan. I left because someone dangerous finally found us." According to the letter, Vanessa had spent the last 7 years hiding from her former husband, Victor. When the twins were babies, Victor had become controlling and violent. After years of emotional abuse and several frightening incidents, Vanessa secretly left with the children. She changed apartments repeatedly, changed jobs, even changed the twins' school twice. Eventually, the court granted her sole custody after Victor disappeared during an international fraud investigation. Vanessa believed the nightmare was over, until 3 weeks earlier. She recognized a man watching Emma and Ethan outside their school, the same man who had once worked for Victor. She panicked. Then she learned Victor had recently been released after serving time for financial crimes overseas. The letter continued. "If he finds me, he'll use the children to control me again." I couldn't risk that. I sat in silence. Her decision was heartbreaking, but abandoning her children was still wrong. She should have trusted me enough to tell me the truth. The following morning, Child Protective Services visited my apartment. The social worker, Mrs. Hernandez, spent time talking with the twins. Emma quietly asked, "Can we stay together?" Mrs. Hernandez smiled. "Absolutely." That promise alone eased some of my fears, because separating them would have broken what little stability they had left. Over the next several weeks, temporary custody was officially granted to me. The twins adjusted surprisingly well. We established routines. Pancakes every Saturday, story time every evening, movie night on Fridays. Slowly, our apartment began feeling like a home instead of an emergency shelter. Then one afternoon, I noticed a black SUV parked across the street. It remained there for nearly 2 hours. The next day, it returned. So did the day after. Remembering Vanessa's letter, I immediately contacted Detective Aaron Mills, the officer assigned to the case. He reviewed security footage from nearby businesses. 2 days later, he called. "You were right. The driver has ties to Victor." My stomach tightened. What happens now? "We're requesting emergency protective orders." Security around the twins' school increased immediately. Weeks later, authorities finally located Victor attempting to cross the border using false identification. After his arrest, investigators uncovered evidence that he had indeed been searching for Vanessa, not to reunite with his children, but because he believed she still possessed financial records connected to one of his old criminal partners. The twins had unknowingly been caught in the middle of something far larger than they understood. Several months later, Interpol located Vanessa on a small Caribbean island. She didn't resist. She voluntarily returned to face child abandonment charges. The courtroom remained silent the day she saw Emma and Ethan again. Both children ran toward her instinctively. She dropped to her knees, crying, "I'm so sorry. I never stopped loving you." Emma hugged her tightly. "Then why did you leave?" No answer could fully satisfy that question. Vanessa looked toward me. "I thought disappearing would keep them alive. I convinced myself they'd be safer with you." "You were." She paused. "But I should have trusted you enough to tell you everything." The judge considered all the evidence carefully. Vanessa's abandonment had caused enormous emotional harm, but investigators also confirmed the genuine threats against her family. Rather than permanent loss of parental rights, the court ordered extensive counseling, supervised reunification, and continued guardianship while Vanessa rebuilt trust with her children. Recovery was slow, very slow. Some days Emma refused to speak. Some nights Ethan woke from nightmares asking if his mother had disappeared again. Healing became measured in tiny victories. A shared laugh, a bedtime story, a family dinner without tears. Nearly 2 years later, the court gradually restored Vanessa's parenting responsibilities. She didn't move far away. Instead, she rented an apartment only 10 minutes from mine. Every decision involving the twins became a shared conversation. No more secrets. No more disappearing. One Saturday morning, Emma looked around the breakfast table. Her mother, me, Ethan, pancakes covered with strawberries. She smiled. I like this. So do I. Vanessa reached across the table and took my hand. I spent years believing asking for help meant failing. I know better now. I squeezed her hand. Families aren't supposed to carry impossible burdens alone. Years later, Emma wrote an essay for school titled The Two Women Who Raised Me. She didn't describe one as the good mother and the other as the bad one. Instead, she wrote, one gave me life. The other gave me stability. Both made mistakes. Both loved me. And together, they taught me that real family isn't about never falling apart. It's about finding the courage to come back together. When I read those words, I finally understood something my sister had taken far too long to learn. Love is strongest when it is shared. Fear grows in silence. And asking the people who love you for help is never a sign of weakness. Sometimes, it is the bravest choice a parent can make.